Suck it up. To endure something painful, unpleasant, or otherwise dissatisfactory. To deal with or recover from some hardship or stress. Suck it up. Endure something painful.
Welcome to the Suck It Up Man podcast. It's been a little bit. I'm Wayne. That's Josh. How you been, man? It's been a while.
I've been good. I managed to travel all the way halfway across the world and back since our last episode. So I had a lot of time to relax and reflect.
How was your trip overall?
It was really good. There was a lot of, let's just say, eat, pray, love type of shit going on there. Had a couple of days where I did shrooms, and I went to Bali in Japan, went to a lot of temples, went to a Buddhist temple, went to a water temple, did a bunch of different ceremonies, and, managed to be one with the world, if you will. So as hippy dippy as I was before, I guess you could say I'm at the next level of hippy dippy.
Yeah, we didn't go to all the same places, but obviously I went to Bali as well. And so, yeah, we also did a bunch of temples. We went to waterfall. I guess we didn't do probably as much hippy dippy stuff as you guys, but sounds like there was some overlap there.
Yeah. And not only that, but I was with a photographers group and a modeling group, and I was the guy who held all the lights. So all those guys out there who are like, if you ever need somebody to hold the lights, I basically got to do that for a couple of weeks with some beautiful women, and got to see some of their tattoos up close and personal, if you know what I mean.
Nice. Yeah, that's really cool. So we just got into the new year, and I made some resolutions for myself. As you know, 2025 was a pretty, I'd say, interesting / rough year for me, results wise, in poker and some different areas. But I was chatting with my wife, Bibi, yesterday, and she said, as long as you learn from these failures, I don't know how to say failures, but as long as you learn from these tough times, that's the biggest thing.
I mean, it's important that anytime you have struggling or difficulty that you do learn from it. It's one of the things when I coach people in poker that, if you end up punting in a hand that sticks with you. And I'll give you a perfect example. While I was in Bali, I had a friend of ours by the name of Sharkster, who was in a World Series poker tournament in the Bahamas. And I was coaching him the whole time, and he got down to 6th place for a bracelet event. And what's funny is he ended up punting off because the guy kept opening, the chip leader did, and the guy opened, 2.2 big blinds, and he ended up re-raising the guy to all in, which was somewhere around 15 or 16 blinds with Jack Queen suited, and he ended up getting snapped off. And of course, I told him, I said, that really doesn't leave you any outs. If you raise it to, 5 big blinds or 6 big blinds, even if you have to fold, it leaves you with 10 big blinds behind. And he ended up getting called by pocket kings. And I told him, I said, the only thing that's going to raise, 2.2x and then call an all-in bet of 15 or 16 big blinds is ace, queen, ace, king, pocket aces, pocket kings. And I said, you had queen, jack suited, so you're blocking queens and jacks. And of course, the guy had pocket kings and he ended up losing. And I said, the most important thing from that is you have to learn and let that sit in your memory bank, so the next time you're at a final table that you remember, hey, maybe queen jack suited is not the most ideal hand to just jam all in with for 15 bigs. But yeah, as long as you learn. So let me ask you this, Wayne, what did you learn from your poker loss in 2025? Because even some of the great ones, even Daniel Negreanu talks about how he lost a shitload in 1999. I think he said he lost $500,000 or so, but he said it ended up being a really good thing. And I know that's kind of hard to pitch to the wife. Hey, honey, by the way, I lost a bunch of money, but I learned so much from it. So I'm going to do so much better this year. But what was some of the biggest things that you think that you learned from punting so much?
The biggest thing I learned was to not chase the fame and the glory, which I know sounds kind of counterproductive in the poker industry, especially when you're vloggers like us. But the first couple of years of vlogging, I simply focused on making money, right? Because that's my job and that's how I pay the bills. And then these last couple of years, I've been focused more on, I guess, becoming famous and getting subscribers. And I kept telling myself that even if I'm losing money, as long as I'm gaining subscribers, I'll kind of make it back, make it on the back end. But it doesn't always happen the way that you think it's going to. And this So this past year, really the biggest losses I had were the 2 streams, which lost over $20,000 between those two, as I mentioned. And then the World Series, I went into it thinking, I'm going to play cash because that's my bread and butter. I win about 2/3 of my cash sessions in my poker life, but I got sucked into the hype and the hoopla. You get there and you see the final tables and you see Danny Negreanu and all these big stars on TV at the final tables. And I said, man, that's what I want to do. And obviously it didn't work out for me. I lost another roughly $20,000. I didn't really even play cash until the end, which I was able to kind of crawl back and win some money back. But this year, my goal is really I might play 1 or 2 tournaments maybe during the series, but I want to just go back to my bread and butter and just playing cash because, yes, I admit it's not as exciting as tournaments, right? We say tournaments, you can, it's the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, right? So I've had a couple highs, I've won a couple tournaments, which were great, but obviously it doesn't happen too often. So I just got to get back to my bread and butter, just play cash. And honestly, I'm excited to play cash for the whole year and just kind of see what my results are because I haven't had a year where I've played mostly cash since I think maybe like 22, 23. So it's been a while.
Bro, you're going to crush it in cash, honestly. And I do know that with your tighter behavior that in some instances it might be better for tournaments, but you just gotta kind of feel it. And I hear you when you say you're like chasing the fame, chasing the glory. I was on the same, I guess, pattern that you were 2 years ago where I lost about 30 grand in Vegas during the series where I was just like, oh, what's another $3,000 buy-in tournament? Fuck it, let's go. And where I think last year, even though I did have a, 15th place or whatever in Big O and won 15 grand. And at one point I was up 18,000. I ended up losing over the summer, just a couple $1,000. But it was one of those things where I think if you're trying to push it and you're trying to force the issue, that you're less likely to be successful. Where if you just let it come to you, you're more likely to all of a sudden start having some of those final tables at perhaps World Series events or WPT events, or who knows, we're going down to Florida in a couple of weeks, or next week, actually, you're going to be there and I'll be there the following week. So I think if you just let it come to you and you just play your game, I think you're far more likely to find success versus trying to force the issue. What do you think?
Yeah, and there was one tournament in particular that really hit home the lesson that I'm now learning. It was I want to say maybe it was the mixed triple draw or it was a horse event or whatever. And I recognized a bunch of people at my table. I only knew one guy by name. And I ended up looking him up on Hendon Mob. His name is Alex Livingston. He's a Canadian pro, and he's got, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 bracelets, and he has maybe 5 million Hendon Mob winnings. And then there was another guy that I've played a bunch with in LA, and I didn't know his name, but then through conversation, I kind of picked up his name. I was like, okay, cool. Let me look up that guy. He had like another 3 or 4 million. And then there was some other guy. I had no clue who it was, but all like Alex Livingston and this other guy who were both crushers, they both had 3 or 4 million. They were saying, oh man, like they were talking that he was the biggest crusher. I said, oh my God, like what is going on? So I found out his name and he had like another 5 million. I was like, dude, this table has over 12, $13 million in Hendon Mob winnings. What am I doing here? I mean, obviously there's some table draws that are worse than others, but why would I play at the table of these crushers when I could play cash games and I'm going to be sitting next to, Bob the electrician and Bill the plumber, right? No offense to those, to those guys, but I'd rather play against them at the poker table than Alex Livingston with 3 bracelets and this other guy with $5 million. I mean, yes, you are going to get higher competition, and there's one point of the argument that says, hey, in order to be the best, you want to beat the best, but also, as I mentioned earlier, this is our job, right? I'm trying to make money, right? So I just got to take the path of least resistance, and maybe down the road when hopefully I'm a multimillionaire and I have FU money like your brother Flounder or some other people, then I could say, okay, let me sit at this table with $20 million of Hendon Mob winnings and pull the slot machine handle and see if I win. But for now, I gotta get back to basics.
I have a proposal for you. I think both of us should make New Year's resolutions for the other person, because I think, so first of all, there's nothing more challenging or more difficult than when you sit down at like a 3K buy-in or a 2K buy-in. And I remember like the 3K mix, and I had Josh Aria, Joe Hatcham, and Sean Deeb and Antonio Esfandiari all at the same fucking table. I mean, these are guys that all at the same time. And this was day one, and I got moved from one table to another. And I remember you were telling me the Raz thing, but those guys, obviously, I didn't even have to look up on Hendon Mob. I was just like, really? Like, this is my draw. I got Josh Aria across the way from me, and I got Joe Hatcham. I think he was to my left. Sean Deeb was to my right, all at the same fucking table. But I think if I had to make a New Year's resolution for you, and we didn't talk about this before, we're just proposing it right here. I think my New Year's resolution for you is, under no circumstances whatsoever do you ever in 2026 look up somebody's Hendon Mob winnings during a tournament. Whether it's the beginning of the tournament, whether it's on break, whether you're at the final table and somebody says, ooh, let's chop, or let's do a price negotiation, and they say, I got a bigger dick than you because I got X amount of dollars in winnings. No, fuck that. My New Year's resolution for you is, don't look up their Hendon Mob winnings one bit. And if you're at the final table, because again, you're just letting it come to you, and somebody does the card of, well, I'm pretty sure I've got more experience than you, you should just say, you know what? There's no experience like the present. I don't give a fuck what your experience is for the past couple of years. My experience now is what's important. So that's my New Year's resolution for you. What would you propose for me?
For you, that's a good question. I think similarly, maybe not 100% cash like me, but I think you have to get back to your bread and butter as well. I think you've had some good tournament scores as well, but I think your strength is pressure and putting people in uncomfortable positions. And you could certainly do that in tournaments, but I think you're a better cash player. So I think you should also get back to more of your bread and butter and stick to more cash. Maybe for you, the perfect ratio is maybe 80% cash.
I was just
versus
thinking
20%
80-20.
tournaments.
Yeah, 80.
Yeah, because if there's a soft tournament, usually the $600 PLO at the series is pretty soft. Maybe the Big O, because that's one of your best games, if not your best game. So I would just say, same thing, get back to your bread and butter. And at the end of the year, we should, on the podcast, even though this is not necessarily a poker podcast, but that's how people know us, we should see how we did, right? Because these past couple of years, I've just gotten destroyed in tournaments. And had I played cash, we'll see. I mean, that's what I'm hoping this year. I mean, had I just stuck to cash, I probably would have had a lot better results. So 80-20 cash versus tournaments. And I think also we should go back to our old strategy of playing cash to win tournament buy-ins. We did that a couple times in Florida, and we did really well with it.
Yeah, every time when we were in Florida, we would play, we'd win like $1,500, $2,000. The next day, we'd have a $600 buy-in. And it was like all the pressure was taken off, and we just let it come to us. And I think that is a key in winning. So is that one of your New Year's resolutions, is 80% cash, 20% tournaments then?
I'm going to probably be more like 90 to 95%. Honestly, I don't think I'm going to even play a tournament in Florida, because a 5-card cash game at Big Easy is just so juicy that I think the last time we were there, I only played it maybe the last 3 days, and I think I won maybe $2-3 grand or whatever. But I want to just see over 2 weeks, what can I win? I mean, I'm pretty sure I can win a good 10-12 grand, but I just want to stick to cash. As I said, maybe at the series, because it's the series, I'll probably play the $600 PLO because I've played that for the last 4 or 5 years or whatever. But I just really want to see how much I can win. And plus I want to get content out, right? I've talked about this with you, where even a couple videos I had where I won the tournament, people just don't relate as well to tournaments, right? Because not every local casino has tournaments. There's only so many places in the country that offer them. So cash is just more relatable to people. It gets more views. So I just really want to do that. One, for my results, but also to get back to putting out more content than I have the last year or two.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I mean, it's the same thing like with me when I do my Life of a Grinder videos, I get like 500 views. If I do a cash video, I get a couple thousand views, 3 to 5 or whatever. And I agree. I think doing cash videos, maybe get back in the swing of it, doing it weekly. I've been a little burnt out, if you will. Like, I didn't post anything for the whole time I was in Japan and Bali. And I did post a Life of a Grinder video that I actually recorded back in July, but it was one of those when I was going through all my videos and doing a video dump on my laptop, I was like, oh my God, I didn't even post this. And so I think you're right. Going back to the bread and butter of what works is obviously huge. So what other New Year's resolutions did you do besides 95% cash and 5% tournaments?
So I want to get back to get back to my roots of hiking. This past year, I've had a couple injuries and a bunch of different things that kind of prevented me from going hiking as much as I have in the years past. So I want to get back to hiking twice a month because San Diego, it's the best weather in the country. You pay for it, as I say. It's very expensive to live, but one of the coolest things here is you can hike pretty much all year round. There's amazing hikes all over the place. So I really want to get back to that. Pickleball. I think I was talking about that when I kind of got disconnected earlier, but I bought a pickleball racket set like 6 months ago and I didn't use it for different reasons. And my parents were in town last month, and my sister, she has a pickleball court right near her, and we ended up going, and it was super fun. I hadn't played for probably a good 20 years since middle school, but it was really fun. I much prefer getting exercise while I'm doing an activity rather than running. So I want to start playing pickleball at least twice a month. I'm going to bring my rackets with me in Florida, so when I have downtime, I'm going to play that. I was with BB and we wanted to do a resolution that was kind of for each other. And we're such a multitasking society, right? We're always doing, if you think about all the things you do in your day, you're pretty much always doing at least two things at once, right? You're in the car, you're listening to music, or you're in the shower, you're listening to music, or you're talking to someone on the phone, but you're also looking up your fantasy football or whatever it may be. And a lot of times she'll be talking to me and I'll have my phone of somebody messaging me or whatever. And I kind of hear what she's saying, but I'm not fully engaged in what she's saying. So that's a resolution is when people are talking to me, especially my wife, I want to actually put the phone down and listen to what she's saying, right? Because it's a little disrespectful, honestly, to be looking at your phone, looking up fantasy football or stocks, and someone's like talking to you and you're just like, yep. It's basically telling them that you don't really give a shit fully about what they're saying. So that's a big thing I got to work on.
Did your wife call my wife and have this conversation with you? Not that saying that Jolene says I don't listen to her or don't pay attention, because I do, but there's a lot of times when she's like, I just told you this like 10 minutes ago. Why aren't you listening to me? And it's like, well, I am listening to you, honey. I'm just busy doing 20 different things. So less multitasking. There's nothing wrong with that. Or when somebody's talking to you, give them your full undivided attention. I think that's a really good New Year's resolution for sure. My biggest thing on New Year's Eve, my wife, Jolene, and I were having festivities with a couple friends of ours, or friends of ours who are a couple. And they have a tradition where they write down whatever you want to burn away from 2025. And I think one of the biggest takeaways that I got from going to Japan and Bali is I just have to let a bunch of shit go. Of course, a lot of this ties in with my kid, but my give a damn button is broken. And that makes me dangerous as a poker player, because one of the things that people compliment me all the time in poker is that pressure that you talk about, where it's like, are you really going to call $3,000 to find out if I have a dry ace or not? And I just realized that my give a damn button just needs to be broken. I don't give a damn anymore. I don't care what people think about me. I'm just done with it. I just don't care. Like, if you think I'm a great guy, great. If you don't think I'm a great guy and you think I'm a villain, great. I have to be somebody's villain. Everybody is somebody's villain in somebody's mind, right? I don't mind being the villain in most people's minds. Fuck it. I don't care. That's kind of my New Year's resolution, because when we wrote down, she was like, oh, let's all write down the things we want to let go and then we burn it. Mine was, and I thought about it. I gave it a good minute and a half thought. It was something that I wasn't sure what I was going to write down. And yeah, I wrote down my give a damn button is just gone. It is completely out entirely. And here's the other thing. I haven't smoked pot in, I don't know, I think it's 35, 40 days. I have no intentions. I've had lots of people offer me pot for free, and I'm just like, I don't care. I don't need to do it anymore. And my wife's like, oh, welcome back. I'm like, well, I've been here, but it's one of those things where it's not really a resolution, but I just don't have the desire anymore to smoke pot. And I did tell her, though, I said, my biggest challenge, of course, is going to be in Florida, because, say I do play a tournament and I go deep and I get first or second and I get sucked out on, or I win, I'm probably going to be like, fuck, I could really use a big fat doob right now. But I just, I've had lots of people who are like, "Hey, I've got some of that really good shit that you like," and I'm just like, "Hey, you know what? I'm good. I don't have any desire." And for those in the audience who are listening right now, I used to smoke 2 packs of cigarettes a day, and I quit cold turkey. And for anybody out there who is struggling with smoking cigarettes, and say you have a New Year's resolution that you're going to quit and you've done this 8 years in a row, and yet you still find yourself smoking after the first week of January because you're making whatever bullshit excuse you want to make to yourself about stress and all this other stuff, I've got some advice for you. Because I was in Bali, and a pack of cigarettes is like $1. And it's legit about $1 for 20 cigarettes or something. And everybody smokes. Like 90% of the population smokes. And these people are only making like 20 to 30 bucks a day. And one of the bartenders asked me, he goes, "You went from 2 packs to cold turkey. How'd you do it?" And I'm going to tell the audience right now, how do you quit smoking cold turkey? My brothers and I took a bro trip down to see the Green Bay Packers and the Dallas Cowboys. 30-hour drive one way. We bought 2 cartons of cigarettes. We left on, I think it was Thursday for the Sunday game. And by the time we got back, I think we bought another 2 cartons of cigarettes. And we basically smoked about 3.5 packs, or at least I was smoking about 3 packs at that time for that one weekend. And when I got home, I ended up going for a run the next day. So had a whole weekend where I smoked probably a carton of cigarettes just by myself in one weekend. And I ran until I threw up. And then I got up and I ran and I sprinted. And I'm a fat guy, dude. I do not run very well, but I ran and I sprinted until I thought I was going to die. And I threw up again. And then I got up again and then I ran some more until I thought I was going to die. And after that, I didn't smoke. I have never smoked a single cigarette since. I made the decision, the only way I can convince myself to quit smoking, because smoking weed and smoking cigarettes are equally addictive. Anybody who tells you smoking weed is not addictive is fucking lying to you. But the only thing I could think of to convince myself is I have to think I'm going to die from this. And the way you convince yourself of that, especially if you're fat and out of shape or whatever the case may be, is after smoking more cigarettes than you ever have in your life, go for one of the longest runs of your life to where you can barely breathe. And I might have passed out. I don't even remember if I did, but I know at the end of that run, I did not feel like smoking a cigarette. And I remember taking my half a pack of smokes and I crushed them. And I just said, I'm never touching cigarettes again. And I still haven't. And I can be around cigarette smoke just like I can be around weed. And I'm just like, you know what? And part of that is I did like being high, but I did not like the challenge of breathing. And maybe this was because I did so many shrooms and I had some eat, pray, love shit while I was in Bali and whatnot. But I remember like when I was doing shrooms, I was in the saltwater pool and my head was under the water, but my mouth was above the water. And I just remember focusing on my breathing so much. And I'm like, yeah, breathing is the essence of life. Like, why the fuck do I want to challenge that with smoking? Because you smoke as much weed as I did, you start having a difficult time breathing. And then you're like, why the hell am I doing this? Am I off kilter here?
No, I'm glad you came to that realization, because I know this has been probably a couple year stretch for you where you've kind of gone back and forth. I know we had a conversation couple of years ago in Vegas when we were there for the series, and you were telling me about how a couple, or not a couple, but a lot of your family and a lot of your friends have pretty much died young, right, from different health reasons, and some of it was related to smoking. And I know you've kind of told me like, hey, I want to quit it, and then you'll quit for a couple weeks and then you're back on it, and it's tough, right, because you've built your identity with smoking, right? A lot of times we'll be in Vegas or we'll be on a trip somewhere, and you've told me before the trip, hey, I'm not smoking. And then somebody comes up to you, as you mentioned, hey, I got this really good stuff. Like I rolled a joint. Let's go outside and take a break. And, it's tough. It's peer pressure, and, you would give into that. But it sounds like you're at a place now where you realize, hey, I want to be around for as long as possible, and I don't need this, right? Maybe once in a while you win a tournament, whatever, you want to have a doob, fine. But you don't need it to be a consistent thing as it's been for you for years.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to smoke again until one of two things happens. Either I win a bracelet. I guess one of three things happens. I win a bracelet, I have a doob with Snoop Dogg because, I mean, if Snoop Dogg offers you a doob, you just don't say no to that.
Yeah.
Or something dramatic with my 21-year-old. But that's probably the only three things. But I even think the dramatic thing with my kid, I don't think I would smoke a doob for that. So I think I'm completely done. I know I'm completely done unless Snoop Dogg, I run into Snoop Dogg and he offers me a big fat doob, I'll smoke it with him. Or when I win a bracelet, I'll end up smoking a doob on that night. But I think besides that, completely done.
Good. I'm proud of you. I'm hoping to help you see that through, and I hope you also help me see my resolutions through of not doing the same mistake as I've done the last bunch of years and play tournaments and just punt money. So looking forward to helping each other with that.
I tell you what, I have a pickleball paddle or whatever that I got 6 months ago. I still haven't used it at all, but damn it, we're going to play some pickleball in Florida. Apparently, that's definitely on the tally sheet.
It's really fun. I think the biggest reason it's grown is because people of all ages can play. Right? When I went last month with my family, there was people in their 50s, 60s, maybe even some guys in their people in their 70s. So the cool thing is compared to a tennis court, I want to say it's maybe not half the size, but it's much smaller, right? So you don't have to necessarily cover as much ground. So, and it's just a very social event. It's really fun. You get your exercise. So I'm excited to, when I first heard about the pickleball craze, I was like, I remember playing this in middle school. I was like, I don't see what the big deal is. Why are people so excited about this? But when I played, I remembered that it is fun, and I like getting my exercise with an activity, as I mentioned earlier. So it kills a lot of birds with one stone. So I'm looking forward to become a picklehead, as they call themselves.
I still have never played pickleball, but I know one of the 8 habits of success for 2026, if that's a big thing for men, if they're Googling that, one of the 8 habits is connect with people in a meaningful way. That's supposed to be like habit 3 or something like that. But maybe we should bring our guest on the pod and ask him if he plays pickleball. I know he's from New York City. I don't know how popular it is there, but here we do have Mike on with us. Mike, do you play pickleball at all? I'm curious.
No, I'm not a pickleball player. I'm old school racquetball players though.
Okay. I've never played, but I know that's
the wall.
It's a vicious game. They stick you in a box with walls all around you, and sometimes you get whacked by the guy's racket because you can't get out of the way. It's a fun sport.
Better. So I've had a lot of conversations with Mike. He's been a viewer of mine, I think of Josh's for a while, and he would give me the usual comment of, hey, you're a nit, you play too tight. But no, me and Mike have had really good conversations. And maybe for the audience, Mike, if you want to give us a little bit of your background, and then we could kind of get into some of the stuff that we really want to talk about. But yeah, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, before I do that, I used to play PLO with the professor.
Oh, shit, no way. I don't think he knew that.
Quite a bit, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Really? You knew that, Josh?
Yes. We talked about this right when you were trying to log on. We were having a little bit of a discussion on that.
Shit. Okay, cool. That's awesome, man. Glad to hear it.
Okay, about myself, I've been a chiropractor in New York City for the last 39 years. I am officially retired. I've cracked my last neck.
Congrats, man.
Thank you. I've been playing poker for the past 20 years. I played PLO. And what they say about PLO players, every PLO player is a failed no-limit player.
True.
You know, at least with PLO, you get twice as many good hands. So it's a lot more fun game.
Yep.
And I play in the underground circuit in New York City.
That's one place I haven't played is the underground in New York City. We got invited to a game. It was like 2 years ago or so, but how is it?
You know, it used to be wonderful. The rakes were reasonable and they became absolutely insane, especially when you play like 25, 25, 25, 50. You know, on a big pot, they may rake $800,000. It was truly insane.
Wow.
But you could win $100,000 pot. But still, you know, it's hard to be a game when the rakes are so high.
Yeah.
You know,
is there risk involved too?
When you say risk, in what way? There's always a risk, but in what way?
Well, I had a friend that played in a game. This was probably a good 10, 15 years ago, and the game got raided. And I don't even think it was by the cops. I think it was by a rival game runner, and they raided the game, and I think they had a couple $100,000. So is there, or I guess, have you ever had any crazy experiences in these underground games?
We never had a situation where we were raided by the police. There was one case in New York, maybe 7 years ago. It was an inside job. They were having a tournament, 2 or 3 tables, and it was a tournament, and then it would be a cash game later on. So everybody was flush with cash. 4 guys walked in with guns, and everyone's like, "Hey, do what you got to do. Leave us alone."
Mm-hmm.
One of the robbers dropped his gun. It went off and killed a player.
Damn.
Now, granted, it was an accident, but there's always a risk, and this poor guy was killed. And then from then on, most of the games became sheet games. Nobody brings money, and you either pay with a PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, all the apps, or they would come to your office the next day and either bring money or collect money. It just took out an element of risk that, and the last thing you want is walking out of a game at 3:00 in the morning in the city with $30,000 in cash on you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned this because I'm supposed to go to a high stakes PLO game in the next 10 days. It's a home game that actually Chris Moneymaker shows up to, and it's a 25-25. Starts off as a 5-5-25, and then it becomes a 5-5-2500 game. And yeah, I'm like, I don't know if I feel like, even if I win, I thought about this the other night, like even if I win 40, and the guy who is got the connection to hook me up, he's like, they don't give a shit if you win 30, 40, 50 grand and walk out of there. I'm like, even if I win 40 grand, it's going to be like, I could see people being like, yo, professor, this is your first time here, man. What are you doing? Walking away with 40 grand? It's like, yeah, welcome to the fucking club. I don't know what to tell you, but it made me feel a little awkward. I don't know.
The games in the city, there's a rule. You play 3 hours. There's no hitting and running. You play 3 hours, and if you plan on leaving in 3 hours, you just say, "Listen, I got to leave at 8:00. I have to go," and nobody has a problem. It's when you and they prevent you from hitting or running. No, you can't leave. Plus, we all know each other, and if you duck out of one game, you hit and run, you're now banned from the New York City poker scene. You know what I'm saying? So nobody wants that, and everybody knows each other. It's funny. We go from game to game, from game runner to game runner, with the same crowd. You might as well just stay in one place, but that's what happens.
I bet you play with a couple of my students because I've got 2 students in New York that play in underground PLO games. They have similar rules where, you have to play for 3 to 5 hours is one of their requirements. And a lot of what you're talking about as far as trying to be cashless, where it's all paper and you settle up the next day, is a lot how most of the people are doing it. And I think that's fine as long as you know everybody, but it becomes a little bit more challenging if you have a guest like myself who's coming in from out of town. Maybe I'm a little bit more reputable than most people, but sometimes it's like, do people get taken advantage of? I'm sure they do. But yeah, when you talk about... No?
No. Like if you came to one of our games, and because nobody knows who you are, you bring cash or you bring your Cash App and you will get paid.
Oh, okay.
That's a guarantee. No, the games are honorable in that regard. You get paid.
Gotcha.
You know what I'm saying? In that respect, they're honorable. We've had...
What is the most common rake? Is it $25 a pot? Is it $50 a pot? Because I've heard of some Georgia games too being up to $50 a pot for PLO and things of that nature.
No, worse. It's 10%. Sometimes they're capped, sometimes they're not. So if you have $1,000 pot, it's 10%. It's $100. But if it's a $5,000 pot, all of a sudden you're taking 500, and that kind of killed a lot of the action, and a lot of the players had to. A lot of the game runners had to adjust their game. But
yeah, because 10% you can't profit from it, even in big games in the long run.
No, it's and then there's one noted guy. He's a dealer, and I'm not going to mention his name, but you may know him. He's got the stickiest thumbs in big games. You know what I'm saying? And it's funny because the $5 chips don't stick to his thumbs, but the $500 chips, man, are like glue. And this is what he does for a living, so he's good at it. You can't catch him. But you got to know who you're playing with in any game. You saw what's going on. There's a tremendous poker situation going on. There was a tremendous bust with Chauncey Billups, and you all know what's going on. I knew 6 of the people who were arrested. 6 out of the 30.
Holy shit!
I thought so too. And One of the guys who got arrested, it was a 25-25 game at his house. I flopped the straight flush. I lost the hand.
Holy shit.
Runner, what a coincidence. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that I got cheated, but I'm sure somewhere along the line, I got cheated.
Yeah.
I got cheated in Miami. I went to a big game with who? Oh, yeah, Chauncey Billups. He was there. You know, and they and everything they said about what they were doing, they would fly their guests in, me being a guest. They would set you up at a hotel. The food was top of the line, Joe Stone crabs and champagne and, you know, nothing but the best, nothing but athletes. And the guy says to me, "You're the only New York City pro. I won 10% of your win." Was the exact thing that they were talking about when they rated and how they set up people. Maybe it's just a coincidence, but that's what happened.
Yeah. So how? I'm just curious. What was the biggest pot that you saw when you were playing with Chauncey Billups and some of those guys, if you don't mind me asking?
At the time, $100,000 pots. There were big games, but what happens is, as you know, the game starts out. Any game starts out 5-5, and by the end of the night, it's 50-100. So with those games, it was 25-50 or 50-100.
Were they doing any crazy shit where they were like, "Oh, I'm just gonna go blind all in"? Because I heard that you know, with the deck shuffler and everything, they can determine, oh, player in C3 is going to win this hand. Were people just like going nuts and making absolutely, like when you lost with your straight flush in this Billups game, was there betting on the flop, or did you try slow playing it, or what? I'm just kind of curious to see, like, if you don't mind me asking.
No, it all went in on the flop because he had the ace high flush.
Oh, wow.
But he also had a couple other spades that hit on the turn in the river. So I can't say for a fact that I got cheated, but he was one of the guys who got arrested.
Yeah, so I mean, there's obviously a pretty good chance there that, I mean, what do you do in that situation? I mean, obviously you can't do anything in the straight flush situation because you didn't know what was going on, but like, how does that make you feel now that you're like, these games weren't on the up and up? Like, I know as a pro as well, when I walk into a home game, like the first thing I look for is security. We were recently talking with a guy who, and I'll get into this in a little bit, in Milwaukee, that some shots went off, like people were shooting at each other. And then the second thing that we look at, or that I look at, is the legitimacy of the game, like how crazy it is. And I know Matt Berkey talked about the game that you're speaking of, the Chauncey Billups game, and he said, like 3 years ago, he's like, this game is not on the up and up. I mean, were there any red flags that this game was not on the up and up to you? Or was it just the action was that good and you just overlooked it, or what?
You know, what happens is the game runner in the Miami game, we were good friends, you know? We were buddies. And a couple of the game runners in New York, one guy was very close to, one guy I just knew well, wasn't particularly friends, but, you know, we knew him well. So, hey, buddy, hey, pal, what's going on? You know, so you don't expect that your friends are going to cheat you, you know? But one thing I've learned is they're game runners. It's business first. And part of the scam is your best friends. You could trust me and you believe it because you hang out, you go partying with them. You know what I'm saying? So and they're professional cheaters, so they know what they're doing. And I'm a chiropractor. What do I know about cheating and stuff like that? No, but that's the truth. You know, that's not my industry.
Sure. No, I get it. Yeah. You know, one of the first home games I went to in Marquette, this was from a friend of mine. I showed up, and the first thing I did, I showed up an hour before the game started, and I said, "Do you mind if I set up your deck?" And when I set up his deck, and he wasn't aware of the cheating, but every single ace in the deck was marked in the same spot, and I pointed it out to him, and I said, "You got a fucking cheater in your ring here." And he was like, "I can't even believe this." He was like, because he was saying the same thing. He's like, "Everybody that plays here are like friends of mine. We go out drinking, we go out partying." And yeah, I mean, I suppose when you see that, you're like, you know, these guys are cheating you. You just don't expect it. I have such a personal, I guess, pride. Like if somebody's cheating me, that's just, they're asking for it. They're likely to get shot. You know, I don't know, not by me, but like, I don't let me find you in a dark alley if you cheated me in a game. You know, my give a damn button is definitely broken in 2026. And if you cheated me in a game and I find out about it, I would like to break your kneecaps. I probably wouldn't, but I'd definitely like to, especially for serious money. Do you think that has an impact on a lot of the home games? Like you're playing home games now and you're still playing with your buddies. Do you guys have a shuffler, or are you just like, fuck shufflers, I'm done with them? them?
They still have the shufflers in some games, some don't. But to tell you the truth, I don't really play that much live anymore. Sometimes I'll go up to Foxwoods Casino. I'm in Connecticut now. For one thing, I figured it out. Let's say you play a silly 5-5 game, okay? And you win 6 pots, and the house takes $100 a pot for $600. You know what? For $600, I'm flying to Vegas. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And I could play there for 5 straight days and not pay $100 per hand that I win. The only thing is it's a pain in the ass to you got to get to Vegas, but the money just dictates. You know what? Going to Vegas, I'll go to Foxwoods, go to Parks Casino. They have a PLO night, one night a week. That's just the greatest PLO games, and you're not paying $100, $300, $500 for the privilege of playing.
Yeah. Did you get any other perks or benefits? I mean, for $300 a pot, and I hope none of the women in our audience take offense to this, but I'd expect to be getting a blowjob at the end of the night, or maybe 2 or 3 mid-game and post-game from some ladies there. Were there ever ladies there, or did any of that perks, or no?
Are you kidding me? There are always ladies there. What's funny is sometimes they'll go, "Hey, Maria's here tonight. Come on down. Maria's working tonight." Like I give a damn, but I like Maria, so I went to play. But the thing is, I used to get free massage. Okay, free massage. They give you a nice dinner. You get a bonus if you come early. So some of the rake that they're taking, they give you back in a bonus if you come early, and they give you free massage.
Yeah, when I was in Dallas last year in February during the Chinese New Year, I got invited to a high-stakes PLO game. The first thing the host sent me was photos of all the ladies. And I said, what the hell is the rake there? And he goes, it's usually 100, 150 a pot. And I said, what can I get for that rake? And he goes, anything you want. And I thought, it's still too high.
No, you know what's expensive? Being married. That's too high. I knew a guy in a big game. It was a game runner. The guy's also a great poker player. Guy lost $100,000. And one of the girls went upstairs with him, and whatever they did behind closed doors, I don't know. But she got paid $10,000 for it. For $10,000, I would have gone up for the player.
Yeah, I mean, I have a shirt that I bought in Bali that says "I'm not gay, but $20 is $20." I mean, hell, for $10,000, I'd be like, "What do you want? A half an hour, all night?" No, just
you make $10,000, you spend $5,000 on the shrink, and you pocket the rest.
Yeah, it's positive EV. I like this thing. Now, at least, so the atmosphere was good at these Billups games, obviously, and they wined and dined you, but holy shit, that rake. I mean, even if you're taking $100 a pot, I'm trying to figure out on an 8-hour game. Oh, yeah, $500 a pot. Like, are you fist fucking me?
$1,000. $100 a pot is for 5.5 or 5.10.
Yeah.
25, it's $300. Could be more if it's a particularly big pot it could be a $25,000 pot on a 25. They may pop $1,000 out of it, man. Who knows what they were doing?
Yeah, $1,000 a pot on an 8-hour game, just running the rough math, ends up being, I want to say about 35,000 a night. No, it's way more than 30. It's 3. Yeah, it's a lot.
Whatever the number is, figure at $1,000 a pot. Figure
300,000 a night.
Let's go 6,000 per rotation. Okay, what's a rotation? An hour? So it's $6,000 an hour.
Well, most games now are 8-handed. Were these games 7, 8, or 9-handed?
It depends. I always went early. I was the start. I always said, fine, I'll help start the game. I leave after 3 or 4 hours. If I'm up, they're like, hey, Mike, you want to go now? It's only been 2 hours, but the big guy's here.
Great.
I walked out with $3,800. I got a $300 bonus. I got a massage. I got a nice dinner. Goodbye. I'll take my money. I'm going home. So I helped start the game. I helped start in a lot of the games.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens is you start with either 5 or 6 players, and after a while you got 7, 8, 9. I don't think there were many 10-handed games. It's what would happen.
Yeah, so typical rotation, is about 40 minutes. So if you're talking, $8,000 every 40 minutes, an 8-hour game that's going to rack up $300,000 in a night.
But they're not 8-hour games. There were games that the game would start at 2. And then I'd get a call at 4 a.m. Mike, game's still going on, that type of thing.
Now, I heard a lot of these high stakes games. I'm just going to ask you a few more questions if you don't mind me. They would also stake players and then give them like 50% of their winnings or 33% of their winnings. Did you have any deals like that with the hosts?
The guy in Miami, I did. There was another guy in New York. that took a piece of my action. One of the game runners. However, they had horses in the game.
Oh,
You know what I'm saying? But they were put into the game, which kind of sucks. If you got 3 horses in the game, even though they all claim that they want to win, who knows? You know, you bet 800. I call the 800. The guy behind me raised it to 4,000. Now I just lost my 800. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
I'm not saying I knew for a fact it was done, but it's easily done.
Yeah, one of my students was a horse in a couple of high stakes games in Dallas, and he said, "Oh, I have to give up 50% of my winnings, but I don't risk anything." And he's basically there just to generate rake. And I said, it's a good setup for the player because you don't have any risk and you have the reward, but at the same time, I mean, that's pretty shitty for our industry. And I say our industry is like a poker industry, if there is an industry of like ours that's poker. But like at home games, you run into that. Maybe that's why people just need to, I guess, play a little bit more at casinos. I don't know. What's your thoughts on this, Wayne? Or
Yeah, I agree. I've stayed away from home games because of friends' horror stories and just the ridiculous raking. I've played in a couple, but even when you have the 3-hour rule or whatever, I still feel weird if I get invited to a game. I'm just kind of sun running. I win, 2, 3, 4 grand within a couple hours. Right at that point, same as you, Mike. Like I'm good. Like I had a good dinner. I made 3 grand. Like I'm okay. That's my kind of my new strategy. Like I don't need to get greedy. I don't need to like win 10 grand. If I win 3 grand a night, cool. But even at that point, I still feel weird. Like so, a lot of times I've dumped some back. Like I know I was in kind of a semi-private game. It's actually in a casino, but it's a mixed game that there's a host that sets the lineup, and I've given back like half of my winnings just because I would feel less bad if I was up 4 grand and I'm only up 1,500. Okay, hey, like now no one's gonna say shit to me because I gave more than half of my money back. But I always got that weird feeling from that.
But don't you want to drive home going, I can't believe I was up 4. I won 1,500. I almost feel like you lost.
Yeah, no, for sure. But that's the pressure you get with home games is because that's why I just always have played at casinos for the most part. Like I can go in, like I'm not going to hit and run, especially when I would play at Lake Elsinore where most of my vlogs were from. Like I play with a lot of the same people. I'm not going to go win a 4K pot and just like leave, but also I'm not going to dump all my winnings back. So yeah, I agree. I think there's just a lot of risk with home games. I guess sometimes if the game is so juicy, you want to play it, but I've also heard that the juicier the game, the more risk involved typically.
Well, the juicier the game, the more variance, it's a lot more action. And especially when you play PLO, even if you have the greatest hand pre-flop and they have the worst hand pre-flop, you're only 60-40 favored.
Yeah.
It's a high variance game. If you tell the host, I can only stay 3 hours, we all know the game. If you're winning, you may stay longer, but you have the option. So if you leave at 3 hours or 3 hours and 10 minutes, they can't say anything. You told them up front. You didn't hit and run. Everybody knew you were leaving between 3 and 4 hours.
It's funny that you mentioned that because this high stakes game that I'm supposed to be at in a little bit over a week, it's one of those things where it starts at 4 o'clock. And I said, well, it's a 4-hour drive from the Airbnb I'm staying at, or 3.5 hours. I said, so I would only want to stay until 8 to midnight. I give myself a little bit of a window, but I've already told the host that hey, I'll help you start the game at 4. I'm only going to go from 8 to midnight because I also found out at that time their give a fuck or their give a damn button is broken to the point where they're just going to keep trying to felt you, and they have an unlimited bankroll. And even though that sounds fun and exciting, I know if you just play numbers and you're all in every hand, eventually you're going to lose one of them. And I'm like, yeah, so basically just show up for 4 to 8 hours and then bounce when I feel comfortable doing it. I think that's probably the best strategy.
Can I say something about the home games?
Absolutely.
Yeah. When the house puts in game runners, the problem is that the game runners, they don't have to lose. Or when another game runner is playing in the game, it stays on the sheet. It's like, I'm not going to pay you the 8,000. You just come my game next week. And, and so what happens is it's paper money. So they're a little bit to pot or repot, because no one has to pay. They just carry the sheet over from game to game to game.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. No, that's a serious problem.
You play and you lose 12 grand, you pay you 12 grand. They play and lose 12 grand, just gets carried over to the next game. And if the other guy wins, you play games with the numbers, and no one ever pays.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's happened here in LA a lot. Like I think there was a big game that Paul Pierce was kind of the main whale in it, and I heard he had a credit line of $200,000, and then they did the same thing, the sheet game, and then he didn't pay it, and then the game broke.
I'm going to tell a story about a home game that I was at. So there's a home game that I was at that I'm fairly confident there was some, I don't know if there's like inside information, but that we ended up getting cheated on. I brought a good friend of mine by the name of Mark Kuhn to this home game because I heard it was a really juicy home game. It was in Detroit. I can't remember specifically where it was in Detroit, but we show up to this home game and it was a red chip game, 5-5, straddled a 10 to 25 all the time. And I remember sitting there and I could have swore half the players were former KGB agents. And sometimes when you're at home games, you're dealing with either doctors or lawyers or, people who are a little bit more nefarious. And I remember the hand Mark got it all in with pre-flop. He had aces double suited, and the other guy, I kid you not, got it all in with for $2,000, and he had 4, 6, 6, 6 in his hand, and the flop came to 6. I'll never forget that. And they were all in pre, and the guy, he went all in like 2 or 3 times in a row pre, but like he 4, 6, 6, 6, 6, and I heard rumors. This is not true, but are not necessarily true, but I heard rumors that it was like 6 months or 9 months later that one of the players had their Bluetooth connected to the speaker system, and when they got up to go use the bathroom, it disconnected from their earphone, and it went over the speaker system, and it said player 4 is going to win the hand. And that's when play stopped. And that was one of those games where it was juicy, it was big, it was a 5-5-25 game, and they had a rule that the initial max buy-in was $2,000, and then you could buy in for 50% of what you lost with up to $5K. So if you were down $10K, you could buy in for $5K. That was probably more legit, but I always had that suspicion of that 4-6-6-6 hand, and he knew the host really well. And I won, I think it was like $800. It wasn't much. But when Mark lost, he was like, I'm out, I'm tapped out, we got to go. And I remember thinking, I don't mind leaving, not because I'm up, but because something is off on this game. Like, it was really good. They had girls there, they had hookah, they had food, they had any booze you wanted. Matter of fact, when I got there early, like 30 or 45 minutes early to check out the whole place. And I asked him to go get me a specific bottle of booze that was like $90, and it was there in like 30 minutes. And when I remember winning my first pot, and I was like, hey, can we trade these red chips in for white ones to tip the dealer? They're like, this is a red chip game. We don't have white chips. So I tipped the dealer $5. I'm like, I'm a party guy. I don't mind working with it. But yeah, their rake, I think, was between $25 and $50 a pot. And I just remember the rake's really high, even though they offer all those services, but also just something just seemed a little off. And if one of the listeners was there that was at that game with me, don't take any offense to it. It was just one of those spidey senses. They were super nice about it, but I mean, why wouldn't people be super nice about it if they are cheating you or robbing you blind? Or fuck, even with a $50 rake, I don't have to cheat to win at that point. I'll just take a $50 rake all day long. Like, that's gonna add up to a lot of money, $20,000-$30,000 at the end of the night.
Can I say something?
Absolutely.
Okay, the thing about the New York games, they're almost never at somebody's apartment. It's a rented apartment or a rented space. So off the bat, they have a $5,000 a month overhead for their business. So they're going to charge you a little bit more than if it's coming in, if you're playing on your dining room.
Yeah.
And
well, and
good.
I was going to say, I know in some of the Georgia games, they went from $25 a rake to $50 a rake for added security. And I remember talking with one of my students. They said, what's the added security? And he goes, I didn't see any difference in added security. And I thought, that's funny. I mean, my first home game, because once upon a time I ran illegal home games, statute of limitations, I don't have to worry about it anymore. But my first home game, I'll never forget, people showed up and my brother was in the basement with a fucking shotgun. And that's how he answered the door. And we were playing 1-3 no limit hold'em. And they were like, why is that guy in the basement with the shotgun? I said, because he's my security. And they looked at me like I was crazy. And I'm like, There's probably only a couple $1,000s in the room, but I wanted to make sure everybody understood that that was my security. And here people are playing 25, 50, 100, 500, you know, and they got hundreds of thousands of dollars and they don't have any security whatsoever. That just, I don't know. I hear stories like this all the time. Like we heard a story from a friend of ours that the Milwaukee game ended up getting robbed. You know, the one thing that he overlooked, I guess, was the patio door or something. And a player got shot and somebody else got shot in the hand and in the foot and all this other shit. And he ended up getting banned from the casino because they knew he was running the home game. And there, you know, it was one of those things where it's like the one thing you overlook, somebody's going to try taking advantage of it. But yeah, anytime you have a bunch of money in a single room, security is the utmost important thing. Like it's the number one thing. I got robbed. I used to deal Nelly's home game. You know, Nelly the rapper, it's getting hot in here, so take off all your clothes. And when we got robbed, it was one of those most bizarre things because the back door was not made of steel. And I remember the host was saying, I just thought about putting in a steel door, but I decided not to. We used to get delivery from the Mexican restaurant every night at about 9 o'clock when the game was going on. And they pistol whipped the Mexicans that were delivering it, kicked down the door. And this guy walks in and he's got blood all over his face. And they're like, everybody stand up. It's a robbery. And I was just like, are you fucking kidding me? But yeah, they made us all strip down naked and give them all of our money. So here's me and 9 other guys, and I'm the dealer, me and 9 other guys, buck ass naked in the kitchen. While they robbed, they got about $30,000 out of the room. And the best part about the story is after they left, people were pulling out tens of thousands of dollars out of their clothes. I remember Chewy was one of the bookies. He whipped out like $20,000. He whipped out 2 bricks. He's like, I'm so fucking glad they didn't go through my clothes. And we had a guy named Rednick who won the 2005 World Series of Poker main event in Europe, or Hillbilly was his name. And he pulled out something like $30,000 out of his coat. And I just thought, these guys took about 30 grand off the table and they left about 100,000 in the room. They had to be the worst fucking criminals of all time. But yeah, the game broke after that. But before it broke, after that happened, I'll never forget this story. Sorry, I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent here, but I'll never forget this story. Kyle, who's a pro poker player, and this is in St. Louis, by the way, he has this massive mason jar full of weed that he would always share with Nelly. And Nelly wasn't there at the time, but he opens up, he starts smoking, and he looks around the room. And this is while everybody's saying, oh, I got 20,000. This is, of course, after everybody got dressed. We're not just going to stand around and stare at each other's dicks. But he starts smoking a big blunt. And he goes, well, I'm just going to chalk that up to a loss. You guys want to keep playing? Oh, my God. I was not a poker pro at the time. I was a dealer at the time. And I just remember thinking, you sick fucking degen. But
I'm going to win and get my money back.
Right. In today's world, I'd probably be like, oh, that was a loss. You guys still want to play? We're still here. The dealer's here. We still got chips and we all got cash. Let's go. They're not going to fucking come back and rob us twice in one night, you know? So when you guys got robbed by 4 guys, you guys were like, just do what you got to do. Did they make you get naked or anything or put your face on the floor?
I wasn't there. I know the place. I was not there that night. Yeah, everyone sits down over there, and the guys were out in 5-10 minutes. They take your watch, you take your wallet, they take your cash, and they're out of there. You know, they want to do their thing. You know, every poker room that I've ever played in New York all have secured doors and video cameras all over the place. If you rob, you're on camera, you know, and in order to get into the place, there's cameras outside in the elevator. There's cameras outside in the hallway. It's pretty well secure, but things happen. People slip up, you know what I'm saying? They take a quick, oh, I know that guy, let him in. Things happen.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah, people are human. My father was in charge of military intelligence, and he told me twice in several years, the safe that had all the secrets to the U.S. government or whatever was left unlocked on 2 separate occasions in like 15 years. He's like, yeah, so people fuck up, you know?
Well, you take something out of the safe, you're going to plan on putting it back in 2 minutes, and then 2 minutes turns to a half hour, and then you get robbed. It happens.
Oh, absolutely. So for all of our viewers out there and listeners, what's some pieces of advice would you give to them, even to myself, who's going to be maybe not going to a high stakes game after hearing all this shit, especially with Chauncey Billups? What would you recommend, or what would you say is some of the biggest takeaways about being in home games?
Okay. There's different types of home games. One where you play with all your buddies that you grew up with, and there's no rake. A lot of home games, no rake. Just come, let's, because I want to play poker. I think the days of rake are over. People realize, people have gotten more sophisticated in poker. And people now realize that it's tough to beat a game that has a rake. You go to the casino, you pay $8 a half hour or $10 an hour. That's beatable. But you can't afford to win a $600 pot and then take out 50. They're taking out 9%, 10%. That's a big vig. That's a big vig. Don't even bother playing home games anymore. It's you can't trust anybody, and you can't beat the game with the vig.
I think that's probably some of the best advice right there is don't trust anyone, because even talking about like a timed rake, and this is something I go over with my students quite extensively. And this is something I explain to people who don't play poker. So for the listeners out there who don't play poker, if you're a professional poker player, for example, trying to play at Rivers Casino, and you're trying to play the 5-5 PLO, which charges $11 every half hour, that means you have to earn $45,000 in profit before you pocket a single dollar in a given year, because that's what the actual cost of the rake is $45,000 per player if you're playing there 40 hours a week. Isn't that fucking insane when you think about it?
It's absolutely insane. What we do sometimes at the casino is whoever wins this pot pays for everybody. You know what I'm saying? And so at least if you won the pot, it doesn't cost you anything in terms out of your pocket in terms of each half hour. So that's the best way of doing it. You say, okay, this is the time pot winner, or you pay half the pot. The first hand, if you win, you pay half the time. Next guy pays the other half. That's the way to do it.
Yeah, we've done some high stakes games that, the first, when the dealer sits down, you go, hey guys, whoever wins this pot, it's time to rake. There's 8 of us. We're gonna owe $70 or $80. The first person who wins it pays for everybody.
Yeah, I think that's the way to play. But like you said, $22 an hour, 40 hours a week. You're at $880 a week. You multiply it by 50 because we all play 50 hours a week. You're talking 40,000 plus. It's insane.
Yeah. Before you even profit a dollar. That's like the big thing. So like my students, when they're playing at home games, I talk to them about the rake all the time. And it's like, I get it. You want to go, you want to have fun. But yeah, in some places like New York, I mean, what are the other alternatives? Going to Atlantic City? I don't know how far of a drive that is. How far is that?
It's a drive. It's 2 hours, more or less.
That's a fuck of a long drive. Yeah.
Yeah. People go to Parks, PARX Casino in Pennsylvania. But only on Tuesdays, because everyone I know plays PLO. I don't know any no limit players. And they get down there first thing in the morning. They'll play for 36 straight hours and then go home.
Yeah, one of my students plays at Parks every Tuesday.
Yeah. Well, I'll go up. I'll take a drive up to Foxwoods, but they're crappy games. It's 2-5 and maybe every so often a 5-10.
Well, now doesn't Foxwoods have a good solid 20-40 stud game go every single day?
They do have a stud. I don't play it, but I've seen it. I think it may be more than that, but I've seen it. I don't play it, but yeah, it is regular. But there's a lot of 1-2 no limit, very little PLO.
Well, and it's super hard to even beat 1-2 no limit with the rake, and even like 3-6 limit. Like if you're playing 3-6 limit, you're just killing time. Really, you're not going to profit off of that game. But like 1-2 no limit is still hard to beat with the rake, at least in my experience. I try to stress to students, try stepping up in stakes just so that way you can be profitable. But I guess every game's a little bit different.
The casinos in Foxwood, it's a time. So even if you don't win a hand, you still, like you say, it's $8 a half hour. On a 1-2 game, it's costing you $16 an hour to play a 1-2 game. You can't win.
That's not bad though, compared to like versus $4 a hand, $4 a hand, or even now casinos are charging fucking $6 a hand, or even $8 a hand when you factor in the promo. You know, $8 a rake. I know in like Detroit MGM, it's $6 plus $2 for the promo, and then if you run it twice, they charge you an extra $2. It's like, what a fucking racket, you know? Like, let's just see if we can really rake people over the coals. Wayne, what do they charge in Lake Elsinore?
It used to be $7. That's pretty standard in California per hand, and I think now it's $8. I haven't played in a while, but that's pretty standard for California, like $7-8. And there's even some casinos, like even if it gets down to small blind, big blind, and like the small blind folds, they automatically take $1. Like even though if there wasn't a flop, so like no matter what, they're saying like if it's a 1-2 game and you fold your small blind, you literally don't even get your money back. They're like, nope, sorry. That's ours. Yeah.
Yeah, the Indian casino that's here, if everybody, like if somebody folds, they automatically take the small blind. It's like, you greedy fuckers. I mean, don't get me wrong. We appreciate that you're offering poker, but I hate it when the casinos are like, we're offering you poker, you should be blowing us. It's like, no, dude, I brought my wife. She's on the slot machine. I'm probably going to go fuck off $500 in blackjack later on. Can I get a little bit of love? Like, the hospitality in poker, I think, is fucking killing the game, because it used to be, hey, you're here, we're happy you're here. Like poker players used to have a poker room rate, especially like in St. Louis and stuff. Oh, you're playing poker with us, we're gonna rent it out to you for $60. If you want to stay at the hotel when it's normally $150. Now they're just like, you're poker players, you're taking up space. But I think what it is they just realize if poker players don't have an option and we all charge the same amount, which is really high, poker players are just going to pay for it. But what they don't realize is eventually people are going to look at it and say, holy fuck, what did I pay in rake last year? Oh my God, I paid $50,000 in rake. Like, I get into arguments a lot when people say, how much do you tip? Well, if you tip $1 a pot and you're a poker player, doesn't matter what your stakes are, but if you tip $1 a pot, you're literally taking $6,000 out of your pocket and handing it to people. Don't get me wrong, I still tip, but that's just $1 a pot. So like, Wayne, when we're playing higher stakes games and you're tipping $5, or I've been on stream where I've even tipped a dealer $100, or like what we did with the Dumb and Dumber, we tipped everybody $25 that we ran into, and that was $25 each. I mean, we dropped $1,000 just in tips just off of that. So I mean, tipping can end up costing a lot too. But people say, what's the appropriate amount of tip? Well, if you're playing 1-2 no limit hold'em and you win a $30 pot and you tip $1, you are not going to be a profitable player. And I'm not saying this because I don't think dealers do get paid well, and I do want to tip dealers, but if you win less than a $50 pot and you're tipping them $1, you are not a positive EV player. You're just not. You have to hit that threshold, especially when the rake is fucking $6, $7, $8 a pot.
I'll be honest. I'm not a big tipper to the dealer. When you hit a river card for the other guy and I just lost a $6,000 pot, the next hand I win a $2,000. You want a $5? Get out of here. I just don't believe. Pay the guy enough money, livable wage. I pay the waitresses. I pay the massage therapist girls. I pay the cook. Something about paying the dealer just pisses me off. How many times have you lost a huge hand on the river? The other guy tips him, but when I lose, I'm going to remember that for the next hand I win. Sorry.
Well, now here. No, you bring up a valid point, because when you start talking about tournaments, okay, if you look at WSOP tournaments, they have a player fee, and then they have the rake, and then they have an administration fee. I don't know if you guys noticed that, but like on a $1,500 buy-in, your rake is like $240, and then you have a $60 administration fee. That $60 is whether you win or lose the fucking tournament, or even cash in the tournament. They charge that to every single player, because that $60 goes towards all the dealers' tips. So this is something like, Wayne, I got second in a mixed triple draw. Wayne and I were at, not this past December, but the previous December, and I got like a $15,500 payout or whatever. And from a pro's perspective, and this is just me personally. Again, I love dealers. I tip them well, but in tournaments, I don't fucking tip them at all because when I'm getting that $15,500 payout, they're like, how much would you like to leave for the dealers? I'll admit, I put a big fat fucking donut on there with the zero. You know why? Because every player already tipped him. Does that make me an asshole? You know what? My fucking give a fuck button is broken in 2026. I don't give a fuck anymore. That's just the economics of being in poker. Am I way out of line here, Wayne?
No, I agree. Yeah, because and those fees keep increasing too. I know Matt Berkey and some other people have been talking about like the WSOP's rates keep increasing, and they figure, hey, we're WSOP, people are going to show up no matter what. But I know Alan Kessler's been big on that. Like he'll host a tournament series and he'll say, hey, there's only 5% rake or whatever it may be, because a lot of times you're paying what, like 10-15% on tournaments, Josh, I think
It's normally between 10 and 15% on big buy-ins. So if your buy-ins like 5K or 3K or 10K, but if it's like a $600 tournament, your rake is typically between 15 and fucking 25%.
Yep,
That's insane.
yeah, another reason why
Casinos are
tournaments
there
are
just
not
to
profitable.
profit. Yeah, the casinos are there to profit. They're not there for the players to profit. And I know that sounds terrible, but like I do think casinos are pushing players away. I almost feel like not just because of the tax law where, 90%, you can only deduct 90% of your deductions, but I think with all the extra fees, I honestly believe tournaments are going to see a decline this year compared to last year. We're going to find out in June, but I think less people are going to play tournaments. And not only that, but I have a little bit of an issue with the WSOP because you're right, Wayne. They're bracelet events. There's notoriety. It's like everybody wants to jerk you off because you have a WSOP bracelet. It's one of those points I make all the time with Mr. Kessler, who, if he's promoting a low rake, kudos to him. Amazing that he's doing that. But as you and I know, when he's like, well, what's your tournament winnings? I'm like, I don't give a fuck what my Hendon mob says. What's your profitability, bitch? Because that's what pays the bills is your profitability. And again, if you have a problem with that, I don't give a fuck. My give a damn button is broken.
Yeah. Yeah. You're seeing it in Vegas too, because I'm there often. My parents live there, and I haven't checked numbers like the last month or so, but I know like the 2 or 3 months, well, usually after the series it's a little slower, but Vegas has really been hurting. You've seen a lot of casinos come out and offer discounts and promotions that they haven't offered since pre-COVID, because they're literally trying to get people back, because they realize that they've kind of pushed the line so far that now people are just saying, dude, we can't afford paying $35 or $40 resort fees. We can't pay, $25 for a bottle of water and a beer or something. It's getting crazy.
So there's a guy I watch called Not Leaving Las Vegas, and he does what's the year-to-date numbers are and what the month was the previous year, and he goes over it. Las Vegas was down 2.3% in total net gambling revenue, and they were down like 5.4% in total amount of like revenue between the cost of rooms and staying and how much people were playing, because people are just tired of being nickeled and dime. And it's funny because the guy's like, the economy's bad. It's like, the economy's not really bad. But in Las Vegas, the economy's bad because the fucking casinos are just ripping people off left and right. And people are getting tired of it. They're like, why the fuck do I want to go to Las Vegas and play poker when I can go to Texas or I can go to Florida? I'm going to get better hospitality, better rates. I'm going to get players that are more punting style players, more gambling players versus pros. When students talk to me about where should I live, the last place I fucking recommend is Las Vegas. Why? Because that's where a lot of pros live. You're playing with, not Joe the plumber. You're playing with people who are trying to grind for a living. And God forbid, I can't imagine trying to play 2-5 no limit hold'em right now for a living in Las Vegas. I'd probably either fucking put a gun to my head or run my head through drywall until I hit a stud. I don't know.
Can I ask you guys a question? Because you guys play poker for a living. I'm just a degenerate. Yeah. I see people that like, if I ever sat down at a game and I saw a Jungle Man playing, I'd get the hell up. What am I, insane? Why would I want to play heads up against Doug Polk? Why would you want to play against these beasts? You got no shot. And yet people are like, oh, I want to play against Jungle Man. Really? Why? I don't understand. Guys?
Well, you've seen Rounders, of course. It's the scene from Rounders, right? Like I sat with Johnny Chan and I outplayed him on that hand, right? So that's kind of what Negreanu and all these people feed into, is like I used to think that, like, back in the day I used to play on full tilt. This was like 20 something years ago. And all the pros names would be highlighted in red, and then like Phil Ivey would randomly be sitting at like a 1-2. Obviously he doesn't give a shit about the money at 1-2, but as part of his deal with full tilt, he probably had something in his contract. Hey, you got to play a couple hours at a 1-2 table. And there would be like 357 people on the wait list, right? Because everyone and their mother just wants to dump their $30 to Phil Ivey. And I bought into that too. Before you got on, we were talking about the last couple of years I've been playing tournaments, and there was one tournament I played where literally it had like 13 or 14 million dollars of Hennen Mob winnings between a couple people. One guy had like 2 or 3 bracelets, another guy had a couple. And why would I? And I bought into it, and I got destroyed this past summer. And I said, why would I want to play with these people versus sitting with Joe the plumber and Bill the electrician, when I could play cash games? I could play for 4 hours, win a couple grand, and go on with the rest of my day. So it took me a couple years to realize, but yeah, now I'm finally woke up and smell the roses.
You go ahead.
Okay. The game in Miami, I was the only New York City pro. The rest of the people were athletes. Like, Mike, come on down. You got all athletes. Is this guy is going to be there? Is that guy going to be there? And you figure you're playing a bunch of amateurs. Why would I want to play a guy who's a phenomenal player? And I got a 30% chance if I'm lucky. No. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I got 2 stories for you. 3 years ago, or maybe it was 4 years ago, I'm playing either 1-2-5 at the series, or maybe it was 5-5-10 PLO 4, and I was up like $2,000 or something. And Joey Ingram sits down at the table, and Joey Ingram's obviously a PLO pro, and I'll never forget when he sat down. I literally just looked at him. And I have a lot of respect for Joey. Like, we've talked a bunch and messaged each other and shit. But I just looked at him and I was like, you know what? I think I'm done for the day. And I just racked up all my chips and I walked away because I had the same thing. The one guy that probably understands PLO more than me, I shouldn't say the one guy, but one of the guys that understands PLO more than me, or as much as me, is sitting right here. Why the fuck do I want to play with that guy? So I got up and walked away. But on the same token, just like Wayne was saying, a guy that him and I both know went to the Bahamas and played and lost some money, but he was like, you know what? I got to live my dream. I got to play with Jamie Gold. I'm like, who fucking cares? Like, I understand it's important to you, but if you're playing for a living, you don't care. You don't, maybe I'd like to play with Jamie Gold because maybe he's not that good. I don't know. But
Jamie's not that.
Yeah, I know, but I didn't want to publicly admit that. But especially in PLO. But and I did tell him, I'm like, he's a known punter, even though I don't think I've played with him. But yeah, it's like, why the hell do you want to play with somebody who is a pro, like a Josh Aryeh or a Sean Deeb? It's like, I'd rather play with Bob the Six Pack, who's just there getting drunk, having a good time.
Absolutely.
I completely agree.
You started playing as a hobby initially. You're playing with your friends, and then you started getting good. At what point did you think, hey, I could actually make a legitimate living from this? How far into your poker career before you became a professional?
Do you want to answer this first, Wayne, or you want me to go?
I'll start it. So I started playing right after Moneymaker won the World Series 2003, and my friends and I would just play 10 cent, 25 cent, 25 cent, 50 with our Ziploc bags of change. We'd go around the neighborhood. And then I think I was maybe 15 at that point, and my dad let me put some money onto PokerStars using his credit card. And I deposited $50 the first week. I was working at McDonald's for $5.15 an hour, and I ended up spinning it up to $1,000 within a week. And I had a shift scheduled the next day at McDonald's, and I called my boss and I was like, listen, Rob, I know I have a shift in a couple hours, but sorry, man, I'm not going to make it. And he's like, what do you mean? Like, putting me in a tough spot. So I did that for like 2 or 3 years until Black Friday hit. And then obviously I wasn't even old enough to gamble at that point. I was like 18, 19 years old or whatever. So it took me years to come back to playing. And then I found PLO, and I started the vlog right after COVID. Basically, COVID shut down everything in California. We were shut down for a while. And I said to myself, if there are no PLO vlogs by the time we open back up, I'm going to start a PLO vlog. And I started doing that. I still have my real estate license, but the market was kind of dying off. So I said, once real estate's dying off, I'm going to start vlogging. But yeah, that's been about 3 or 4 years now. So it hasn't been easy, and the games have gotten tougher to beat. But yeah, I was playing PLO 5-5 for the last 3-4 years, and now we play online a little bit, and we have other revenue sources, which I think is the biggest key to being a poker player, probably now more so than ever. But that's kind of my story. Josh, you want to give your little background?
Yeah. So at the time, I graduated from the University of Notre Dame and I was working in corporate retail. My kid was born, and I remember when I went to go set up the stores in St. Louis, I would work 40 hours, 50 hours a week, and then I'd go play poker for another 30 hours a week. And when I was playing poker for 30 hours a week, I was making good money in retail. I was making close to like $90,000 a year. And keep in mind, this was like 2003, 2004, so right around moneymaker. But when I was playing poker, I was making essentially that much as well. And I'll never forget, I went and played a 5,100 limit game. And I used to play the 2040 limit game all the time in St. Louis, but every Wednesday they would have a 5,100 game with a full kill. So it'd be 100, 200, just hold them. And I ended up winning like $11,000 or $12,000. The game started at 10 and I won like 12 grand before noon. And I came home and had just a hellacious argument with my wife at the time, because she was like, you have to have a job. We have a brand new baby and all this other shit. And one of the main reasons why I'm not married to her today, besides the fact that she used to beat the shit out of me. But besides that, I knew at that point in time that I was going to be a poker player for the rest of my life, because it was one of those things where I was like, I don't need to be busting my physical body and my mental body and my spiritual body for a corporation that's just going to treat me like a number. If I'm a poker player, I'm in charge of my own destiny. And it allows me the ability to go to Bali. It allows me to go to Japan. It allows me to do all these things. But it was about at that time. Now, obviously, I had a bankruptcy. I mean, all poker players go broke once or twice, or sometimes 9 or 10 times. So there's a lot of learning curves that are in there. And I've been broke to the point where I was looking for loose change in my couch to buy mac and cheese and ramen. True story. Donating blood to get $60, $70. True story. And I think most poker players have some kind of story like that. But I look at that now and understand that that develops me as a better poker player, as a human being, as a person. And I'm grateful for those experiences. So that's kind of when I realized it. But yeah, you do have to really dive into it and go full on. Because like for the month of December, I lost about $11,000 and change for the month of December, and it's my worst month of 2025. But hey, it's a new fucking year. And, I only had 2 losing months. The other 10 months were profitable. So I'm perfectly okay with that. That definitely happens. Now, one of the things that we do on this podcast is we do have a previous guest who doesn't know who you are ask a question, and then you in turn get to ask any other question to the next guest. So the question that this person has for you is, if you could ask a deceased family member anything, what would you ask them?
I am 66 years old. My dad is 91, doing phenomenal. My mother's 86, has some health issues, but is alive and doing well. The people in my family who've died over 30, 40 years ago. My grandparents, I don't really know what I would ask them. We had a guy, my Uncle Nady, my father's uncle. He used to drive a cab in New York, and he would always say, I should buy that building. I should buy that building. And these are buildings up and got him for a song and a dance. I guess if I could ask him, why did you just do it? Why didn't you pull the punny? Pull the lever, just do it. And he just put all his money in the bank. And when he was in the hospital, they took all the money, and he died penniless. He could have had buildings. I guess, why didn't you buy the buildings? Luckily I come from a family that's long-living family. So it's really hard for me to answer that question, and I apologize.
No, that's okay. I think that's a great answer, though. I mean, and you're fortunate enough to have both your parents still being alive at their ages. And so I guess what you're saying to all of the listeners and viewers out there is go buy the fucking building.
No.
Maybe not now.
The buildings, now the prices of buildings are going to go down. They've been going down. We have a mayor who's going to tax the wealthy people.
Oh, yeah.
And it couldn't make me happier. You know, New York is a Jewish city, and they voted for a guy who hates Jews. Makes no sense. Makes no sense to me. How about this one? If I could ask anybody, you know, I would ask my brother, how could you vote for this anti-Semitic Islamic radical? But we're not allowed to talk politics.
So for our next guest, what question would you ask them?
Give me something about the guest. Is a man or a woman?
We've never done that before.
I could ask him anything?
Anything.
You can ask him anything.
Oh my goodness! You know, it's hard. I don't even know anything about this guy. It's I like to ask questions from people who I want an answer about. I guess the question is, why would you date a woman in the United States when they have been so messed up with what a woman is, when you can go to a place like Colombia who understand what a woman is and are dying to meet a great guy? How's that?
You know, that's fucking hilarious. I'll let Wayne explain.
I love it. Yeah. So we didn't really cover a lot of what we originally talked about, which is fine. We kind of just let the natural conversation go, but we'll definitely probably have you on another time and kind of go from there. But yeah, there's definitely been a lot of, I think, bad social programming, especially to American women. And we've talked about it on this podcast before, where the pendulum, I think, is starting to swing back, where women are kind of seeing like, hey, maybe the last 10 to 15 years, all these things we were told, maybe we do need a man. Maybe we shouldn't tell men they're pieces of shit. And like, we would actually like to be taken care of, and we do want to like have kids and be a housewife. There's nothing wrong with that, but you know, so there's a lot to that, and we unfortunately don't have a lot of time to get into it now, but we'll definitely have you back on and kind of discuss some of these topics.
You know,
well, the best part.
Okay, I'm sorry. I apologize.
No, I was going to say the best part about your question is just to give you a little background. He's a Jewish man from New York who said, I want to talk about dating, and I want to talk about dating international women.
I know a lot about this.
Yep.
I'm moving to Colombia on January 6th. Sayonara.
Shit. All right. Well, now we definitely have to have you back
warmer.
on.
Yeah.
It's warmer. The weather's nicer. I got a really cute 27-year-old who loved me a long time. She just wants to be with me. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing.
Well, yeah, you can't beat that. So we'll definitely have to have you back on and do the non-poker New York City Mike. Well, actually, it'd be Columbia Mike podcast. Columbia Mike. Maybe it doesn't sound as cool, but as long as you like the area better, then you know it could be great.
It could be Medellin Mike. Medellin Mike is cool.
I think it would be great to bring you back on in like 3 or 4 months and be like, how's Colombia? What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? You've already been there a bunch of times, but I think that would be great to bring you on in a couple months and follow up with you.
You know, because right now, Colombia is the #1 destination for expats. You know, a lot of people are going down there. You know, it's more affordable. The weather's great. The men aren't going into the women's bathrooms. I'm sorry, can I say that? You know.
That's allowed. It's allowed.
I hear you there.
The one thing I can't do is I can't wear my Trump hat. They hate Trump because of the deportations.
Yeah,
gotcha.
So I'm gonna have to donate it to a Trump supporter in Connecticut.
See, I was gonna guess it's because he's blowing up all the drug cartel, and you know, Colombia is a little bit known for the white powder, yeah stuff. So,
do you want to hear something amazing?
I'm listening.
Now, I don't do it. I have never done it, but I heard that cocaine was between 100 and 125 a gram. And it goes to Miami, and he steps on it. It goes to New York, he steps on it. It goes to his 12 guys who are selling it, and they step on it. In Colombia, it's $5, 100% pure. So I heard. I don't know that for a fact, but that's what
One of my students invited me to Ecuador after Miami, and he said to me, Josh, you know, the white powder is $5 a gram. And I'm like, I don't sniff anything up my nose, but I appreciate that. Yeah, that's what he was telling me. And I told that to my wife. You should have seen what my wife, she looked at me and she goes, you're not going to start importing cocaine. And I'm like, don't worry. You don't have to worry about that, honey.
For $5 a gram, you almost have to. You almost have to do it for $5 a gram.
That's exactly what he said. He's like, it's $5 a gram. I'm like, so an 8 ball's $40? What the hell? I'm like, that's so cheap. I'm like, that's ridiculous. But yeah, no, I don't do anything up my nose.
No, you know, what was I going to say? I had a buddy, the guy who had the Miami game. He goes down there with a bunch of degenerates. They buy an ounce, you know, or they'll buy a kilo of Coke, 1,000 grams. And they'll do it for a few weeks, and then they leave. I go, what do you do with the coke? They're like, we just give it to the next gringo. Just give it. I would really like to offer a warning. We've all thought of, you know what, for $5 a gram, I'm bringing some back to the U.S. Let me tell you something. The Border Control, they know 1,000 times more than you. Any great idea that you have, they've seen it 500 times. Don't even attempt it. Don't play that game.
I completely agree.
Great. That's great advice.
Yeah, because you're like, I'll put some in my shoe. They know every trick. They know every trick in the book. Don't think it, and don't carry it in Colombia because they will arrest you, and then you're gonna have to call home mommy for $20,000 to be let out. Don't play that game.
Well, we'll have you back on it when you're back in Colombia in 3-4 months. We appreciate you coming on, Mike. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me, Wayne. Professor, it's been an absolute pleasure. Are you still? I'll play you some heads up, PLO.
We'll get a game going later on.
I'll give you some more of my money. I know you could use it.
Oh yeah.
Thanks,
all right,
Mike.
brother. Well, we appreciate.
Thanks,
Peace.
Mike. So pretty fun episode.
Yeah, I liked Mike a lot. I like talking. I mean, we did a lot of poker. We almost did exclusively poker, but yeah, normally we don't dive into poker, I guess, quite as much. But then again, I mean, it is our lifestyle and it is a lot of other people's lifestyles as well. Things like rake is probably one of the most overlooked things in poker if you're considering it as a career, or even if you're doing it recreationally and you're like, wow, I feel like I broke even. Where did all my money go? And if you're in one of those clubs in Texas, they have great deals that you can buy extra hours. If you buy them in bulk, I highly recommend doing that if you live in that area, to buy them for as cheap as you can. I know sometimes they're like, 100 hours is only $500. And it's like, $5 an hour is a great deal. But it's something that people need to consider whenever they're playing poker, even if they're doing it recreationally and they have a bankroll, because it affects your bankroll.
Yeah, I think you have to treat it as any other business, right? If you say, hey, I'm going to open up a bakery, right? You say, okay, how much is the rent going to cost? How much are all the machines going to cost? How much is all the ingredients we're going to need to make our baked goods, right? I don't think people actually do that with poker, right? They don't say, hey, how much is the rate going to be? How much maybe am I going to have to pay for coaching? They don't really put
hotel. Yeah,
hotel. If I'm going to go we're going on a trip next week, I got to factor, okay, I got to pay X amount for the Airbnb, rental car, yada, yada, yada. Like, I don't think people actually put the expenses out. And I'm not saying that to discourage people, but I'm saying any business you go into, you have to think about your expenses, and you hope within a couple years that you're going to make a profit. So I just want to echo that point. I think having an idea of the rake is really important, and that's definitely a reason to not play these home games. I would say if you could find one reasonable, cool, but most of them have gotten ridiculous now. So I would say stick to the casinos and try to find the best rake you possibly can.
Absolutely. I think that's about it for me.
All right. Well, see you guys in the next one. If you do want to be a guest on the podcast, definitely reach out to us. We'll leave our email down below.